When we talk about focusing on what you can become, the very first shift that must take place is in how you see yourself in this moment. Most of us are so attached to our current identity, our present situation, or the labels society has placed on us, that we start believing this is all we will ever be. If life has been unfair, we start saying, this is who I am, this is my destiny. If we have failed repeatedly, we begin to wear the failure like a badge, as if it defines our entire existence. But the truth is, who you are today is only a snapshot in time. It is not the whole story. You are not a finished product. You are a work in progress. And if you dare to see yourself not for what you are now, but for what you can become, your entire perspective changes. Think about this. A seed in the soil doesn't look like a tree. It looks fragile, small, almost insignificant. If someone judged it in that moment, they might dismiss it as unworthy or incapable. But inside that seed lies the potential for a tree that can give shade, fruits, oxygen, and life to the world around it. That is the same with us. You may be in a stage of life where people underestimate you, or even where you underestimate yourself. But what you are right now is only the seed. What you can become has the power to transform not only your life, but the lives of everyone you touch. The danger lies in confusing your present condition with your permanent reality. Just because you are struggling right now doesn't mean you are destined to struggle forever. Just because you don't see progress today doesn't mean progress isn't possible. Many people allow their current version of themselves to dictate their future. They say, I am not confident, I am not talented, I am not lucky enough, so I cannot achieve anything great. But those statements are not truths. They are just temporary reflections of where you are. The self you are today is simply the foundation. The self you can become is the building, the architecture, the masterpiece that is waiting to be built brick by brick. Philosophically speaking, life is never about being, it is about becoming. Existence is not a static state. It is movement, it is growth, it is evolution. Look at nature. Rivers never stay still, seasons never remain the same, even the sky is constantly shifting. Yet human beings make the mistake of assuming their current state is their final one. We stop evolving because we convince ourselves we are already defined. And when we live as if we are already defined, we stop imagining, we stop striving, and we stop becoming. If you study the lives of people who have transformed themselves, you will see that their greatness was not in who they were at the start, but in who they dared to become. Nelson Mandela was once a prisoner, but he chose to become a symbol of freedom. Oprah Winfrey was once a young girl in poverty, but she chose to become a voice of empowerment. Even Muniba-mazari herself. Her life was changed by tragedy, yet she chose to become not a symbol of pain, but a symbol of strength. Their greatness did not come from their starting point. It came from their vision of what they could become. And that is where the challenge lies for each of us. The question is not, who am I today? The real question is, who do I want to become tomorrow? Because the moment you start shifting your focus toward becoming, you begin to live with intention. You begin to design your life instead of drifting through it. And that shift is everything. Of course, this isn't easy. Your current identity will always try to hold you back. Your mind will whisper, this is just who you are. Don't try to change. People around you will remind you of your failures, your weaknesses, your past mistakes. But if you accept those voices, you stay trapped in a version of yourself that is too small for your potential. Instead, you must rise above those voices and remind yourself daily, this is not the end of me. This is not the full story. I am still becoming. When you shift from focusing on what you are to what you can be, your mindset transforms. Struggles become stepping stones, failures become lessons, delays become preparation, and suddenly, the things that once looked like limitations begin to look like opportunities for growth. You begin to carry yourself differently, speak differently, dream differently, because you are no longer living as the limited self of today. You are living as the expanding self of tomorrow. So, I leave you with a thought. Your current self is temporary, but your future self is limitless. Stop defining yourself by what you are right now and start daring to see what you can become of. Because the day you shift your focus from the present version of you to the possible version of you, that day life will never be the same again. When we begin to focus on what we can become, one of the most important inner shifts is learning to see possibilities rather than problems. The human mind has an extraordinary ability to magnify what is wrong. We are wired for survival, So naturally we notice danger, obstacles, and threats. But this same wiring, if left unchecked, can trap us in a life where all we ever see is what is broken, what is missing, what is not enough. And when we live with that lens, our future looks smaller than it really is. Think about it. Two people can face the exact same situation, yet one feels crushed while the other feels challenged. The difference lies not in the size of the problem, but in the size of their perspective. Problems are not as powerful as we think. It is the way we interpret them that gives them power. When we view a challenge only as a wall, we stop moving. But when we choose to see it as a doorway, even if the doorway is narrow, we push ourselves to walk through it. Life will never run out of problems to offer you. If you are alive, you will face setbacks, disappointments, and challenges. But it is not the absence of problems that leads to growth. It is the ability to see possibilities within those problems. Every breakthrough in history came from someone who chose not to be defined by the obstacle in front of them, but by the opportunity hidden inside it. The light bulb was not invented because Thomas Edison saw endless failures. It was invented because he kept seeing another possibility. Airplanes did not come into existence because the Wright brothers were blind to gravity. They succeeded because they imagined what was possible despite it. And yet, on a personal level, most of us get stuck because we allow problems to dictate our emotional state. We look at a financial setback and say, "This is the end." We experience rejection and conclude, "I am not good enough." We face a delay and think, "It will never happen." But these interpretations are choices, not truths. If you step back and widen your perspective, of the same setback can be seen as a lesson in resilience. The same rejection can be seen as redirection. The same delay can be seen as preparation. It is all a matter of what lens you choose to wear. Philosophically, life is not about eliminating suffering. It is about transforming suffering into meaning. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote that even in the darkest of camps, those who could find meaning in their suffering could survive with their spirit intact. That is the power of seeing possibilities where others see only problems. It is not blind optimism. It is a conscious decision to look deeper than the surface of pain. When you train your mind to look for possibilities, you begin to ask different questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "What have I lost?" you ask, "What can I create?" Instead of, "Why is this problem so big?" you ask, "How can I grow bigger than this problem?" These shifts in questions expand your imagination and awaken the part of you that was built for growth. It is also worth remembering that problems are not the opposite of possibilities. They are the soil in which possibilities grow. Without pressure, coal would never become a diamond. Without resistance, muscles would never get stronger. Without storms, seeds would never break through the soil. What feels like resistance today may actually be shaping you into a version of yourself you would have never become without it. But here is the key. You must be willing to look beyond the obvious. Most people stop at the surface level of life. They see pain, so they stop. They see rejection, so they quit. They see uncertainty, so they freeze. But those who rise, those who become extraordinary, are the ones who look again. They ask themselves, "What else could this mean? What else could this lead to?" That second look is often the birthplace of transformation. You may not be able to control the size of the problems you face, but you can absolutely control the size of the possibilities you see. And once you shift your focus in that direction, you begin to notice doors where you thought there were only walls. You start to realize that every problem you have faced has brought you closer to the person you were meant to become. So the next time life places an obstacle in your way, resist the temptation to say, "This is the end." Instead, pause and remind yourself within this very problem lies the possibility that could change everything. It may not look like it now, but often what seems like the hardest chapter is simply the preparation for your greatest story. And if you carry that belief, you will stop being crushed by problems and start being shaped by possibilities. That is the difference between a life of defeat and a life of destiny. The problems will always be there, but so will the possibilities. Which one you choose to focus on will decide not only what you see, but who you become. One of the greatest obstacles to focusing on what you can become is the tendency to live under the shadow of past labels and judgments. From a very young age, we are constantly being told who we are. Some of those words sound harmless at first. You're shy. You're clumsy. "You're not good at this." Others are harsher. "You're a failure. You're not enough. You'll never make it." And little by little, we start to internalize them. We carry them in our minds like permanent truths, when in reality, they were nothing more than passing opinions from people who often didn't even understand us. The problem with labels is that they shrink our possibilities. If you've been told all your life that you're average, you stop believing that excellence is even an option. If you've been told that you are broken, you stop imagining a future where you are whole. And if you've been told you can't, you eventually stop trying. The saddest part is that these judgments are not reflections of your true potential. They are reflections of someone else's limited perspective. People project their fears, their failures, and their insecurities onto you, and if you are not careful, you start carrying their limitations as if they were your destiny. Think about how powerful the human mind is. Whatever identity you accept, your mind begins to reinforce it. If you believe you are weak, you'll interpret every challenge as proof of that weakness. If you believe you are unworthy you'll unconsciously sabotage opportunities because deep down you don't think you deserve them. This is what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. You become the very thing you believe about yourself, not because it is the truth, but because you never dared to see beyond it. But you are not your past, and you are not the labels attached to you. You are not the sum of your failures, and you are not the limited vision someone else had for you. You are a being in constant evolution, and what you choose to believe about yourself today has far more power than what anyone said about you yesterday. History is full of people who were mislabeled but refused to be defined by it. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Thomas Edison was told he was too stupid to learn anything. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. If they had believed those judgments, the world would have been deprived of their greatness. But they understood a simple truth: other people can name you, but only you can define yourself. And let me add this, sometimes even positive labels can be limiting. If you are always called the smart one, the strong one, or the responsible one, you may feel pressure to maintain that image at all costs. You begin to fear mistakes because you don't want to lose the label. You hide your struggles because you don't want to disappoint anyone. And without realizing it, you start living not as your authentic self, but as the character others expect you to be. In both cases, whether the label is negative or positive, the result is the same: you stop becoming. You stop evolving into the fullness of who you truly are. Detaching from labels does not mean denying your past. It means refusing to let your past dictate your future. Yes, you may have failed, but that does not make you a failure. Yes, you may have been rejected, but that does not make you unworthy. Yes, you may have been broken, but that does not mean you cannot be rebuilt stronger than before. Every experience you have had is part of your story, but none of it has the power to define your destiny unless you allow it. This is where courage comes in. It takes courage to say, that is what they said but this is not who I am. It takes courage to peel off the labels you have worn for years and stand in the discomfort of not knowing exactly who you are yet. But it is in that space, when you are no longer trapped by old definitions, that you finally have the freedom to become. So ask yourself, which voices am I still carrying that no longer serve me? Whose judgment am I still replaying in my head, even though that person is not walking my journey? What labels have I allowed to shrink my vision of who I could be? Until you face those questions, you will remain tied to the past. But the moment you release those labels, you open the door to the person you were always meant to become. Remember, you were never created to fit into someone else's definition of you. You were created to expand, to evolve, to break molds, and to surprise even yourself with what you are capable of. Labels may describe a moment in your life, but they can never define the entirety of your life. So let me leave you with this thought: the world will keep trying to label you, but only you get to decide whether those labels stick. And the day you choose to let them go, you step into a freedom that no judgment, no opinion, and no past mistake can ever take away from you. Once you begin to release yourself from the weight of past labels and judgments, the question naturally arises: if I am no longer defined by what I was, then what am I moving toward? And this is where the power of visualization comes in. It is not enough to detach from what has been. You must anchor yourself to what can be. You must learn to see, with clarity and conviction, the version of yourself you want to become. Your imagination is not a childish tool. It is one of the most sophisticated capacities of the human mind. Of everything that exists in the world today, buildings, art, technology, even movements of social change, was once nothing more than a picture in someone's mind. They saw it before anyone else could see it. And because they held on to that vision long enough, it became reality. The same applies to your own life. If you cannot picture the person you want to become, how can you ever step into that reality? Visualization is not about fantasy, it is about focus. When you allow yourself to picture the strongest, most resilient, most authentic version of yourself, you are giving your mind a blueprint to work toward. It's like programming a destination into your inner compass. Without it, you drift. With it, you move with direction. But here's the subtle truth: when you visualize, it is not just about seeing success, happiness, or achievement. It is about embodying the qualities of the person you want to become. Do you see yourself as courageous? Do you see yourself as compassionate? Do you see yourself as disciplined? These are not just vague ideas. When you begin to imagine yourself living with those qualities, your brain begins to wire itself in that direction. Science has shown that the brain responds to visualization almost as powerfully as it does to lived experience. Athletes train their minds by visualizing the game, not because it is wishful thinking, but because the brain begins to rehearse the motions, the discipline, the strength. You can do the same with your own growth. There is also a philosophical depth to this practice. To visualize is to affirm that you are more than the present moment. It is to acknowledge that the self is not fixed, it is unfolding. The self you are today is one chapter, but your imagination has the power to draft the chapters that have not yet been written. That is why it is so dangerous to live without vision. Without vision, we recycle the past. With vision, we reimagine the future. Many people avoid visualization because it feels unrealistic. They think, who am I to imagine a greater life? Who am I to see myself as strong, capable, influential? But the real question is, who are you not to? If you don't imagine it, if you don't give yourself permission to picture it, no one else will do it for you. Your vision does not need approval from anyone else. It only requires your belief. Of course, visualization without action is empty, but action without visualization is blind. You need both. When you combine a clear mental image with consistent daily choices, you start bridging the gap between who you are and who you can become. And the process is gradual. You may not wake up tomorrow as that fully realized version of yourself, but each day you can take one small step in alignment with that vision. Each day, you can act a little more like the person you imagine yourself to be. And over time, the line between imagination and reality blurs until you are no longer just seeing that future self, you are living it. But let me also be honest, holding a vision requires resilience. Life will test it. There will be moments where reality looks nothing like what you imagined. In those moments, it is tempting to give up, to say, maybe my vision was too big. But those are the very moments where your vision matters most. It is in the gap between where you are and where you want to be that character is forged. And if you can keep holding the picture of your future self even in the midst of setbacks, you will not only survive, you will transform. So ask yourself, who is the person I want to become? Not the person others expect me to be, not the person my past tries to chain me to, but the person I know deep within I am capable of being. Can you picture them? Can you see the way they stand, the way they speak, the way they carry themselves in the world? And more importantly, are you willing to start living in alignment with that picture today? Because here is the truth of you are always moving toward something. Either you are unconsciously moving toward repeating your past, or you are consciously moving toward creating your future. The choice is yours. And visualization is the bridge that shifts you from drifting into your history to deliberately designing your destiny. So let me leave you with this thought: if your mind can picture it, your life can begin to move toward it. The self you see is the self you will become. So dare to see bigger, dare to see clearer, dare to see the version of yourself that this world has not yet met. And then with each small step, begin becoming that vision.